Welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Anderson. Super excited to dive into today's episode, talking about how to build and sculpt your own destiny, right? Sounds like an Indiana Jones movie start, but no, we're super excited to dive into this topic. We brought on an expert. We're going to get into what it really means to take ownership of your life, transform those pains that you have into purpose, and define success on your own terms. And we're doing it by having someone on who's done that and walks the talk every day. Kayla Logue is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and founder of Move Into Words. It's been recognized as one of Charlotte's top 30 under 30 future leaders and creator of the national Operation 1 Million Journals initiative. She is empowering people to redefine success through radical accountability, faith, and purpose. Kayla, welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Super excited to have you guys. This could be a rough one. So we've been having to do multiple takes, had to restart stuff. I'm full transparency because it's been a rough one for me this morning, not counting Kayla's part on mine, just with tongue twisted. Yeah. So this will be a fun episode, I'm sure. But yeah, super excited talking about building, sculpting your own destiny. I love that because I think we have so much control in our future with the choices we make. It's not always about our environment. So for you, Kayla, I'm going to just dive right into it. What was that, picture perfect life that you wanted, that you didn't have, and what sparked your shift into creating that life?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I kind of say that we have blinders on until we actually just choose to take them off. And for me, it started as I was, going through the motions, really, checking off the boxes of society, as I call it, going to college, getting married, having a house, having a job. And then I did all that. And then I was like, wait, what am I even doing? Because we live that life and then, then we die, right? There's no excitement to it unless you're willing to, take the step back and reflect and realize, okay, what do I want? Why do I want it? What purpose am I working to fulfill? And ultimately, what does that really mean for me? And what I realized is I was just going through the motions and more of the surface level, again, checking off those boxes rather than, taking real responsibility for, what I did truly want. And, there was, so many things. It's been over 4 years now, and it's crazy looking back because I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives in between, that time when I was married, I had a job and COVID hit, and then I completely just left, started over with $900 and I had no direction, obviously global pandemic. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but I'll figure it out. So, flash forward to present day, in that time, I did a lot of deep work. It wasn't just, all these things happening, writing a best-selling book and, having a lot of experience and a lot of success in real estate development, now being a multi-unit franchise owner of a Pilates studio, and then also starting a nonprofit. None of that happens just out of the blue, right? It's a lot of work, but it's also very purposeful work. What's really cool about from where I was and just, going through checking off those boxes and thinking that it had to be that surface level stuff is now everything that I do every single day I wake up, I'm working my ass off. But at the same time, those boxes are ones that have been created and defined by myself. And ultimately where I find purpose is, being the best version of myself so I can show up and be the best version for others. And everything that I do and the experience that I have is really creating an environment and, creating a lifestyle that can allow other people to be the best version of themselves. And that's where I find the deepest purpose is being able to, be the best me for other people to show up and be the best version of themselves too.
Yeah. So how did that shift look like? Obviously you went through like COVID, other things. And how did you start building that kind of muscle of like, hey, I've got to take ownership to be the best version of myself for others? How did that kind of process kind of go?
Yeah, I was really confused at first, clearly, when you just start over and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know this isn't it, but I don't really know what it is. And, for me, physical activity has always been a huge thing that has been a stress reliever. It's definitely been my sanity for years. I've been an athlete my whole life. I could swim when I could walk, and I played sports all through college. So, that physical activity is something I really turned to. But I played softball. I never really ran long distance, but in COVID, I decided to just become like a marathon runner. I was
There you
running
go.
miles and miles a day. But I realized I was not processing my thoughts. I wasn't really, I was just running on repeat, and they were just repeating in my mind on these long runs I was doing.
Yeah.
So that's when I picked up the habit of journaling. And for me, it truly has been life changing. I say, where it started was when I was able to start actually truly processing things on the pages. And it really kind of became my lifeline for a while. Blank page, pen, and that's where I started to really define clarity, really be able to set those goals, really, but not only just set the goals. I've always been good at, kind of having those goals, but I became clear on them. I became clear on that deep purpose. And, I started writing a lot, and I was a journalism major. So I always loved writing. I always have been able to write, long papers really well. So kind of the combination of getting really clear with where I wanted to go and through my journey, and really kind of manifesting everything on a piece of paper through multiple pages of a journal is what even kind of like led me to that initial writing my book phase too.
That's awesome. So with journaling, if someone's trying to get into it and they look at a blank piece of paper, they're like, I have no clue. I mean, maybe I can start with the date. How do they get into journaling to be able to kind of, mind them, get that stuff out of their mind, out of their heart, what they're feeling, to kind of start processing and guiding through like, hey, okay, these are the next steps that I need to be taking daily that gets me to where I want to be?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different approaches, and I think it's different for everybody. I think the most important piece, is doing it intentionally. Like that, it has to start with that. It's kind of the same thing I use the reference of. I can go to the gym and I can just stand there and get nothing out of it. It's the same thing as with journaling. If you're just writing stuff down to write something down and you're not actually getting anything out of it, or really doing it intentionally, like journaling is going to be stupid to you because you're not actually being honest and vulnerable with yourself. So I always say, be vulnerable with the pages. For me, I just love brain dumping. When I get stressed out or I can feel things boiling up, sometimes I like to avoid journaling, which is the worst thing to do, and I finally do it. I'm like, oh, I feel so much better. Like there's the clarity, right? But kind of, I say, 5 minutes a day can change your life. Yeah. And it can really start with just a minute of brain dump, write down what you're thinking, put it down, get kind of clear, do kind of more of a gratitude reflection practice of, those grateful thoughts, kind of things like be present, ground yourself, and then start, for the final 2 minutes, just writing down things that you can do today to be really clear and actionable of like, okay, where do you want to be? And like, what do you need to do today to get there? Because, we're really sucked up into this instant gratification life. We want all these big things right now.
Right.
And, the virtue of patience is very overlooked. Yeah. But I do really think the journaling practice, when done with intention, does allow you to really ground into the now. And I found, over the past 4 years of doing it, that's, where I find like a lot of peace, because it does allow you to stop and like slow down and be like, okay, this is where I'm at. I'm happy to be where I'm at. And this is what I can do to get to those big goals.
Yeah, I like that. It shifts it from like the stress of thinking back and anxiety of what's to come to like, what is the controllable that I can do right now in my life? And you talk a lot about, radical self-accountability. So in real life, what does that look like as we're, journaling, writing this stuff down? Hey, this happened because of whatever, I could have done this better. How does that look like in real life? Radical self-accountability.
Yeah. And I think it really does come. I mean, this is advice and it's so simple. We hear it often, but it hits differently when certain people tell you it. It's my dad said, control what you can control. Yep. And really, I mean, again, we've heard it so many times, but for some reason, one time he said it and I was like, holy shit, duh, but like, it was, the thing about that. And when you really break it down and actually apply controlling what you can control, a lot of our anxiety, a lot of our stress comes from things that we have absolutely no control over. Yep. And when you can actually take a situation, when if you're stressed or you're feeling anxious and you're just all over the place, if you can take a step back and think about, okay, what do I actually have control over in this situation? A lot of times it's nothing, right? All it is our response and like being there. Yep. But when you can do that in almost every situation, it's almost like life becomes less chaotic, because you, one, are only focusing on the things that you, again, need to do or can do, rather than, worrying about all the things that you actually, no matter what you do in this world, it's not going to change it. Yeah. And like, naturally we do that. And it sucks, but it's that really self-awareness. It's being really present in, each situation and not letting things spiral out of control, and then just stepping back and really applying that control what you can control mentality to it.
Yeah. It's something I've been even just recently leaning even more into is like, what can I actually control? Just like you're saying, like, and it's like I can control how I react, how I respond, and what action I take right now. Everything else, it is what it is, right? It's gonna
Right.
play out how it's gonna play out. So how do you shift that mindset? Um, yeah, I know you talk about like mindset shifts in your book, always squeezing lemons, right? So what does that look like, a mindset shift? And what is that mindset shift look like that you're hoping people can kind of change as they read your book, but also as they're just going out through life journaling, things like that?
Yeah. And I think this is, in one sentence, a really good summary of my book. Obviously, the subtitle is Taking Responsibility to Define Your Own Success.
Yeah.
But more of that actual like mindset shift would be when you realize you can be the cause, problem, and solution for everything in your life, your world changes.
Yep.
And it really is that radical responsibility and that mindset approach where it's like, okay, I can be the cause, I can be the problem, but I can also be the actual solution for everything. And it's so true. And when you do really apply that on a broader and even smaller scale, it does really shift your perspective on almost everything. And like I said, I really talk about that approach from the very beginning of chapter 1 all the way through chapter 12 and sharing like detailed life experiences and how that approach really evolved over time. And it's very raw, it's very vulnerable. It's something that, readers have said I can pretty much envision myself in your situation through my experiences
Yeah.
and apply that takeaway. But you know, the mindset thing is everything. It really is. I mean, you can go into something and completely just talk yourself out of it when you have every right to be there. The self-doubt, that type of stuff really creeps in. But that radical responsibility approach it creates a lot of confidence too.
Yeah, 100%. And that is something kind of with that confidence. Like some people, they just get stuck in what other people define them as, or the box that people put them in, or what success looks like. How do you guide people, or how can someone begin to redefine that success if they feel like they're stuck in someone else's kind of definition of it? So like maybe their worldview, their environment, their parents are like, success is go to college and do this, but they see something different. How can they redefine that and start taking action towards that new definition of success?
I mean, I do think confidence plays a lot in that role because you
Mhm.
do have to be confident in yourself to, start over, to,
Right.
change and not be reliant on what other people think. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. When I decided to start over and get a divorce and do all these things, like I was judged for it. Of
Sure.
course, I still had my support system and everything along those lines. But you have to kind of get to the point where you actually, people are going to have something to say,
Yeah.
whether it's good,
Yeah.
whether it's bad, and it can't affect your life, because ultimately, if you're stuck in that position, like find where you find purpose and move towards that. It might not make sense, but it's going to feel right.
Yeah.
And, when you can feel those differences, that's so important. So really being true to yourself, but also not allowing what anybody has to say, change your mind. I mean, take guidance, take mentorship,
Yeah.
but don't allow somebody to talk you out of something that you want and is, does actually have purpose for you. And, I think a lot of people do get stuck in that, society and pleasing rather than, really truly living a fulfilling, purposeful life for themselves. And that's so unfortunate. Everything, even with my nonprofit, that's kind of a really fundamental piece of it. It's, become the best version of yourself for yourself so you can show up and be the best version of yourself for others.
Yeah. I love that. And it kind of gets into, more within your move into words and how the Operation 1 Million journals got started, right? Can you tell us a little bit about kind of that piece?
Yeah. So, I mean, really moving towards the entire, actual fundamental piece of it. Our mission is to cultivate a community for young professionals to thrive physically and mentally. So, we've done events that really incorporate a workshop for the mind and a workout for the body. So, kind of, incorporating move into words, and they've been awesome. Right now we're only in the Charlotte area. This off season, we've really been able to, nail down ways to scale and, build out, and we're having a lot of traction growing. So, it's really cool to see where this started. I mean, the idea of this was started in the pages of my journal. And now it's, becoming a movement, and my
Yeah.
my partner through that. It's amazing. But yeah, so Operation 1 Million Journals is kind of like our, big lofty goal, but also our first fundraising initiative where it's,
Right.
what a donation of $10 is one journal. And at each event, we provide journals because, we have a 2-hour event. And I mean, it's a holistic approach. It's everything. And it's amazing. You leave there feeling great, but it's only 2 hours, right? So the journaling piece is something that we talk about, why it's beneficial, how you can do it, how you can apply to your life. And, everyone takes away a journal from all of our events. So that's how that kind of all got incorporated. It's really cool, like I said, to see how it's expanding, how it's growing, how, it's impacting people. The last event, everyone's been like, oh my gosh, when's the next one? We're like, okay, we're working on it. We're getting it together. But yeah, so it's been cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Cause I was going to ask you, like, what impact have you seen already from this so far?
Yeah. I mean, since we're only in Charlotte, I mean, fortunately, what's been really cool is every single event we've had, more and more people come, but each event, the same people that were there show up to the next one. Right. So it's almost like 100% retention rate, which has been really cool. Yeah. Everyone, like, once they're there, they're like, wow, we haven't seen this done this way. Wow. This is like something I've been really searching for, something that I've been really craving, and they're sharing with their friends. But they've really loved the approach of the journaling too, because it's something that we hear about and we talk about and we know about it, but it's not talked about in a way that it is so practical, because it really is. And, it's making it kind of more of a focal point rather than just something kind of random, like, oh, journal, like, because I used to think it was the stupidest thing until my sister was like, you should do this. And I was like, there's no way, a 25-year-old with a long overdue diary, like, this is going to be beneficial. Right. Like, that's really was my thought. And I was so wrong. And, so I've become like a huge advocate for it just because how life-changing it was for me. And even my partner in Move Into Words has been very life-changing for her. Yeah. So it's becoming more of that, again, focal point, and something that, 5 minutes a day can change your life. So.
For sure. That's cool. I love to hear that, and the impacts, that people are making through what they're doing. So, and having these mindset shifts, like starting journaling, like, it can be a big, bold choice for others. Like, sometimes, I mean, cause it's a complete change, like you said. And so we've talked a lot about confidence in these bold choices. You've mentioned confidence a couple of times. So where does your confidence come from?
So, I mean, I think one for me, what I realize is when I'm doing the things mentally and physically for myself, on the days when I just have a good routine, I'm eating well, I'm working out, I'm journaling, I'm at the beach ideally, sure. That's when I feel my best. And that's when I'm my most confident. It's not necessarily hitting these big goals and these big achievements, but I also find a lot of confidence in being able to help people from my life experiences. I've had some really big rewards. I've done some really cool things over the past 4 years, but I found the smaller rewards have meant a lot more to me. So the confidence does come from, the things that I'm doing that do light me up, and then being able to share that and impact others in a very positive way at the same time.
That's awesome. So would you direct people, like, if you want that same kind of confidence, inner kind of fire, just take action and continue to improve, and it'll come?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like, we could go down a whole spiral of health, right? When it comes down to physical and mental health, and like really prioritizing that. Like, I'm somebody that, I work out almost daily. If I'm not working out, like, I take recovery days, but I'm moving. I eat very healthy. I cold plunge, I do recovery. I journal. So, and I spend a lot of money making sure, like, I'm, in a healthy space. And I think it's not overlooked, but it's, the whole hustle culture, like grind till you die type of thing it's going out of style. So, finding that confidence, like, you have to feel good. You have to look good. You have to do these things, like, for yourself, that ultimately, like, does lead to that confidence. It's not just, oh, let me dabble into it. It's consistency. It's discipline. It's showing up even when you don't want to. Not making false promises to yourself. That right there is the number one confidence killer. So, and all that looks a little bit different for everybody, but feeling your best is so important. And that does come from the mental and physical side of health.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you kind of, on those days, because we'll all have them, days that we don't feel as good or confident, even in these routines, is there something you turn to or something you do to kind of get you back in there quicker, and not stay out of focus or out of sync?
Yeah. I mean, each day looks a little different. And, on those days, some days it's like, okay, maybe I'm not pushing where I need to, or I'm kind of like procrastinating things.
Yep.
And then I just, take some time and get the deep work and knock the stuff out. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's other days where I've just been going nonstop and I need to just stop. And I do, I used to not be good at that. So I think it's being, very present with yourself and, not just doing the easy thing either, because a lot of the times we're like, oh, I'm tired, I don't feel like doing this. Well, I could say that every single day, I'm tired a lot of the times, right? But at the same time, it's finding that balance and again being very present with that, and a lot of the times doing the thing in the moment that you don't want to do. That's building that mental resilience. It's doing the things that like, okay, I know this has to get done, rather than pushing it off, just doing it. And I'm guilty of that some days. Don't get me wrong. Like there's days where I'm just like, okay, that was a little bit of a wash. But at the same time, the mental resilience, the confidence does come from doing those hard things in the moment that you don't want to do. So, but also being present with it at the same time.
For sure. Now, looking back at, because like you said, you've been able to have, get these awards and you have these external successes on either big or small scale, like looking at those and then looking at where you started, like how does that make you feel? Like just kind of retrospect looking at all that.
It's crazy because I feel like it's been a time warp. So it's like hard, but at the same time, I've never been great at giving myself credit. And it's something that I have to continuously practice because, and I think this is very common for a lot of high achievers, entrepreneurs, when you have big goals, you a lot of times overlook the small things. And then sometimes when you hit those big achievements, they don't feel the way you expected them to. And so a lot of the times when we do hit those big achievements, we don't realize that they don't feel the way we expected them to. A lot of the times we weren't enjoying the journey and the process to get to the mountaintop. And, that's through these experiences and things like that, I've been able to allow that to help me give myself more credit. And with that being said, to kind of like full circle answer your question, I look back and, on days even when I find myself like, oh my gosh, I'm not accomplishing anything, I'm not doing this, I do take that full circle look back and be like, all right, you're doing great, So I think regardless, it's super important for anybody and everybody, because no matter what, if you're working hard, you're doing the things you should be doing, you have something to give yourself credit for and you have something to be proud of. And if you can't do that on whether it's a huge basis or a small basis, you're going to stay stuck in this just kind of like lack of fulfillment space. And that's really uncomfortable. So
I like that. Yeah. Cause it's like, I'm guilty of it too. Entrepreneurs, like it's always the next goal. Right. And if we get super frustrated, why I'm not at that revenue goal or at that, audience goal or whatever. And we don't look back of like, yeah, but you started at zero and like you hit these milestones, like don't forget those and don't brush those under the rug. So that makes the journey worth it. Enjoying the journey itself too is, try to have some fun on the journey. Right.
Yeah.
So you can get there and it was worth it. I think it's a big thing sometimes we overlook.
It's also too, like to that point, like it's easy nowadays to compare yourself, especially with social media at our fingertips. There's just, getting caught in that cycle, and there's no way all of us aren't guilty of it at some point. It's again being present, being self-aware of not getting stuck in that cycle, right? Like if you catch yourself comparing yourself to somebody else, just delete the app or just get off, you know what I mean? Take a step back. Because it's tough. It is tough to not do that, especially when you do have big goals. And it's not like you're upset with where you're at. It just becomes a natural thing. And I mean, again, being an athlete my whole life, like I'm very competitive. So it's kind of like taking that approach out of it while also just staying focused on myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, my mind is going crazy.
100%. Yeah. It's like, you don't know where they're at in the background. Like they show you the best stuff, but like you could still be like, it doesn't matter if you're doing better than them. It's like, just kind of like we said, like in the moment, like what's our control? Like this is what we can control. And this is where we're at. And that is what it is. And like just being thankful or grateful with that and kind of moving from that direction. So, I'm curious here as we kind of wrap things down with this kind of quick fire lightning round. Has there been a book that's changed your life?
The Gap and the Gain was really impactful because that was one that really gave me tangible, practical ways to start giving myself credit.
Oh, cool. I like that. Okay. Gap and the Gain. Now with this one, it's a morning routine a must.
Oh yeah. When I miss, I mean, at least for me, and sometimes like I'll give myself a little bit of leeway on it, but my best days are when I wake up early, I do my thing in the morning, I have my mental clarity time, because then I show up better throughout my entire day.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
It's because it's crazy. Like, because when I first started, so when I quit my job in 2020 to figure out what I was going to do as a business, like it was all about, you have to get up at 5 a.m. You have to have this morning routine. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. And so I was doing, it was good. And now I'm hearing people like, oh, you don't need to do that morning routine. Just get right to work. And I'm like, the shift already in this small time frame is just interesting.
I think everyone has their own stuff. You don't have
Yeah.
to get up at 5 a.m. But I mean,
Right.
I also don't understand how just getting up and going straight to work is healthy for anybody,
Right.
because that's, there are some times where I'll sleep in. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
getting up at 5 a.m. every morning. I used to. And now,
Right.
like, I actually really value my sleep a lot more at this
Right.
point. But no, I feel like you have to give yourself some sort of mental clarity, because there are mornings where I don't have a routine. I have to run right into something.
Yep.
And I don't feel right the whole day. So it's
Right.
just,
It's
I
always
think
like
that's
playing
super
catch up the
important.
whole day.
Yeah, your routine doesn't have to go onto a T. Like, you don't
Right.
have to follow a simple thing, but I think you need to have some sort of thing that gets you started for the day, and whatever that looks like is,
Yeah.
up to you. But
Yeah. I think starting in a position where you're not just reacting,
yes, that's a
like,
great way to put it.
yeah, you get up and you're putting out fires, or, like me taking care of the kid, like immediately, like it's like, whoa. And you're like just thrown right into it. And then it just keeps going from there. So I love that, having that clarity, that moment in the morning where you can kind of anchor your day to that and have control
For sure.
over it. Cool. Biggest lesson you've learned from failure?
Oh, that it's subjective,
Mm,
and we get to frame it how we want. And, ultimately, you know, failure is the other side of success. But the thing is I say it's subjective because it allows the blow to be like a little bit less, but at the same time, like, be able to apply the learning experiences.
yeah.
It's not a true failure unless you just quit and
Right.
you just stop, right?
Yep.
So being able to apply that and turn that failure into success is super, super key. And that subjectiveness piece of it gives you the control of what failure really means, and, reapplying that.
Yeah. That's a good point for sure. All right. Last one. Define freedom in one sentence.
Time is freedom. Honestly, money is a tool to buy time freedom. And, for me, my time has always been something that's super precious. And I've never wanted somebody to tell me what I can and can't do on my own time, which
Yep.
is one of the major reasons I'm an entrepreneur, because I
Mhm.
would not be a great employee.
Right.
So I think any entrepreneur, like you said, would kind of say the same thing.
Yeah.
But money is a tool to get you to time freedom. And, if you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want, for however long you want, you're living the dream.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That's awesome. So this has been great, Kayla. Thank you again for sharing all this. If someone listening right now feels like they're stuck, what would you say to them right now?
realize that you have complete control over it, and, find where you find purpose and move towards that.
Awesome. And then now, where can people connect with you if they want to learn more, get your help, and check out your journaling?
Yeah. So, my website, kaylalogue.com, has literally everything: social media, my nonprofit, my book. Reach out to me, email me. I have some like one-on-one coaching stuff that I'll do, like, for very exclusive people. So it just kind of depends on the case scenario, but feel free, go to my website. Everything that you would need is on there.
Awesome. Yeah. So make sure you do that. Connect with Kayla. You learn from her, see what she's doing, support her. She's doing a lot of fantastic things. So, Kayla, again, thank you so much for being on the Elevate Media podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was super fun.
Absolutely. And for those listening, if you haven't yet, make sure you go follow the show. It helps us get this in front of more people so we can make a bigger impact in the world together. Share this episode with someone specifically who's trying to make a change in their life and take control. But until next time, we appreciate everybody. Continue to elevate your life, elevate your business, and we'll talk to you again soon.